in I want to welcome everybody who just came in early and heard that little intro. Anyway, we are back for another dose of positivity, and I am super excited about today's show. As many of you know, I am a woman who is passionate about revealing the divine in all beings, but really focused on the divine of Mother Earth and women in general who many of them unsung heroes. So today's show promises to be very, very uplifting, very, very positive. And I know that most everybody in that live audience right now, you're all women, but we have men who listen to the replay. We want to welcome everybody to this inclusive conversation. And again, all the new people who are on the live today and watching us on Facebook or on LinkedIn, thank you so much for carving this time in your day to be with us here, to raise the vibration of not just yourself, but the world. And we're diving into Lady Freedom today, which is a story that it's mind-boggling, but there's a woman who's hidden in plain sight in our story of American history, and she is on top of the Capitol building. And we are going to be diving deep into the history of that with a historian, Katya, who is been a writer. I'm going to go right into her bio in a minute, but both of these women who are in the house right now, and Kris, these women have been working together to bring all this beautiful, rich history of the American nation as we know it into the light as to what it really is and how we've gotten to this place in the 21st century. But this is going to be a great conversation, and I am really excited to read something very quick from my book, one of my books called Living Like the Future Matters, which touches upon why I'm having these two incredible women here to share their brilliance around the subject of being a woman. So it's more than just being a woman, it's also looking at the history of our nation. But this is taken from my book, Living Like the Future Matters. And I want you to just think about this and reflect when we're going back and we're looking at eventually you and I in 50, even not some of us 25 years, but for sure in 100 years, people are going to be looking back like we're talking about the women we're going to be talking about today, almost like indigenous or elders or ancestors. We are going to be those ancestors. But in the meantime, we're here right now living in this time. So I'm writing about this in 1980. In 1980, when I was 22, I dug into my first business without considering the odds of being a woman. The pressure to subside to the American dream stayed present, as did the daunting stereotype role of a bitchy businesswoman, hidden in broad daylight. I continually tried to prove myself in the male-dominated business world. It could be hard, and the physical pain I endured all those years made it even harder. The entrepreneurial traits I inherited from my strong like bull, innovative father were to be a rule breaker, to be full of tenacity and passion, and to have a bold vision. You didn't hear me introduce the great introduction. I'm so sorry, everybody who's listening live. What happened? I wonder what happened. Well, you know what we're going to do now, because we are live. Thank you, everybody. And Kayla, it's so great to see you. I would love Kris and Katya, because I just did this stunning introduction with lots of passion about the two of you. But why don't you go ahead and come off? People have seen enough of me. And Kris, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little about all your beautiful achievements and what you're doing to bring all this beautiful information forward, and then give us a little bit background. And Katya, you'll come on, and then we'll keep it rolling.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Donna, thank you so much for all your trouble to hold this beautiful space and for
Yes.
inviting Katya and I to share about the stories of Lady Freedom. And I would go right into the stories of Lady Freedom, but I'll share a little about myself. My name is Kris Farquhar. I'm a singer and an artist at heart. I don't know what that other sound is. I'm also a mother and an author and a holistic health practitioner with Somatic Sound Therapist. I grew up in a beautiful place called Medford Lakes, Centennial Lakes, in southern Jersey, along the east coast of the United States. And these lands were actually Lenni Lenape lands, reservation lands, but I didn't know them at the time. And they had wonderful chain of freshwater lakes, endless footpaths that a kid just, it was heaven. I was either in a canoe or in skates in the wintertime. I left there in my 20s and I moved to Florida, stayed out, and specifically the town Naples on the West Coast. And that's when I fell in love with land. I volunteered at a place that rehabilitated injured animals and birds from the area. And that's when I learned about the threatened and endangered ones and the very specialized ecosystem of southern Florida. And I would take long, long drives out to the Everglades, and I would drink in the magnificent skies, huge sky and the vista and all the bird life. It was magical for me. And I made friends with the Miccosukee, the indigenous people there, and I would sit and listen to their stories. And one day, while leaving the Everglades and driving on my way home, I just had to pull over. I was just filled with inspiration, and I parked my car and I went out onto the beach, and breathless, and I cried out really out loud. I said, "Why do I feel so much?" And I was given an answer right away, even before the last word escaped my lips. And the voice said, "So that some may feel a little." Well, that changed me inside. And from that moment on, whether conscious or not, I have been driven, impassioned to make that inner divine voice merge and balance with the outer voice, to become one voice, one heart, and one mind. And this is very much incorporated into the somatic sound therapeutics that I work with, whether it is with individually with people or when we travel to the heart of Lady Freedom. So from this moment onward, my life changed a lot. I ended up writing 2 books for children on the Everglades, the threatened and endangered ones. And I also wrote music. And a wonderful organization, Friends of the Everglades, you might have heard of them. They really liked the books and they used them to launch their children's program. And life was good. I was a writer and an illustrator, and that was going to be my life. That's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
Well, things changed. I fell in love and I got married and I moved away. And I moved to the southern Colorado mountains, specifically the Double Mountains called the Wahatoya, which means breast of the earth, a breast of the world in Comanche. It's known to be a medicine place. And there was a wonderful artist community there. And I gave birth to my first daughter. And it was there and that I was hired to sing a composition by a composer in the region there. And I had heard it once, and I fell in love with it. And it was great because there was no melody and there were no words. I was absolutely free to interpret the song as I needed to, and I did. And I had an experience while recording the music. And I went back the next day and I spoke with the composer and I told him what I had experienced. And he called the song Trail of Tears. That was in 2005. And I was to move again. I moved in 2009 to California because my mother was not doing well. She was passing at that time, and I needed to be near her. We moved, my daughter and I, and it was in California that I finally had the chance to sit down in my own studio and match visuals to the experience I had had in the music. It's what I call environmental music films. That's some of the work I do. And I never really know where these films are going to end up because I leave myself open to the creative process, that inner voice. So when I sat down to begin the project, something shifted. And what was called the Trail of Tears became a voice of a universal mother force in the beginnings of humankind in the Mesopotamia and Sumeria and Egyptian regions. And her name and her faces changed as she grew and expanded over the old world and the new world in miracles. And I had no idea where it was going to end up. And I came to this amazing statue on the top of the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. And I said, who the heck is she? And that's when I found Lady Freedom. And I immediately went to researching her, and I couldn't find a thing at that time in 2010. Really, nothing was out there. And I found this little YouTube with a massive voice. And that's how I found Katya. So I'm really excited to introduce you to this amazing woman who has spent 30 years of her life researching this entity on top of the Capitol building, trying to bring her to life and make people see her. It's been quite a journey. And without further ado, I welcome and I introduce you to Katya Miller. Please take it away.
Kris, that's so lovely. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, Katya. Always.
I've got the sun in my eyes. I'm in Santa Rosa, California, north of San Francisco. And I want to thank Donna first for talking about, she labeled this talk Honoring Women's Legacies. And I call it Our Common Legacies, because this is the story of the Statue of Freedom on the United States Capitol Dome. I'm going to show you images in a slideshow, but look at this lovely statue that comes out of the Capitol Historical Society in DC, where I researched. Now, yeah, like Kris said, there isn't much. Well, in 2010, I was looking for who the statue was in 1993. That's when I first found out about the statue. And the way it happened, I was in a women's group, and one of the women knew that I'm a metalsmith. I'm trained at the University of California as a metalsmith, and I made jewelry and small ritual objects for 25 years at the time. And so you know how it is with a profession, it becomes one with you. So I worked with gold, silver, copper, and bronze. And I intrinsically understood those metals, but also I was making symbols, symbology. So I had a resonance with metals and symbols. And of course, I was working on uplifting myself as a woman and other women. So I loved the female imagery, and I would find it everywhere. But I didn't know there was a statue of a woman on top of the Capitol Dome. So it was in this book about the Native American contribution to our country. And one of the women in the group handed me this Xerox copy. Remember Xerox copies? And so I found out there's a statue, and was she an Indian or who was she? So for a few months, I wondered who she was. And then on the cover of the San Francisco Chronicle, I saw an image of her, because that was when they were taking her down after 130 years to be refurbished. So that was the first time I got to actually see her. And there was a workman that was kissing her cheek. It was really cute. So that was my first time to see her. And then a little bit later, I was a meditator. I was sitting in meditation with 3 other people in the room. And the statue actually came and visited me and spoke to me. Now I could cry right now. She said, "I'm so honored to be on top of the Capitol Dome, but so unseen." Who are you talking to, you know? So just that one sentence became my life's work, because it was the spirit of the statue speaking to me. And, you know, you can't deny when there's a spirit. And it was very simple. So anyway, and then later, because I think you're based out of Hawaii, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you the story of a Hawaiian kahuna who influenced me and kept me going all these 30 years. She was Morna Simeone. I don't know if you've heard of her.
No.
Okay. But first, I just want to ask you and all of you, did you know there was a statue of freedom of a woman on top of the Capitol Dome?
No.
See, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So that's my life's work, to bring her alive, right, to get people to see her. And I call this a history and a mystery. And my work is to get people to see her. Now, I told you already, I was trained at the University of California. So I made a pendant of her. That was all I knew to do, because I was a metalsmith. So I made this pendant of her. I gifted her to Hillary Clinton, and I would visit the curator of the statue at the Capitol, at the architect of the Capitals. So she had one of my pendants. And then there was a celebration in October of '93 when she went back up on the Capitol Dome. So I'm hoping they wore them, but I'm not sure. So what I'd like to do, because I'm very visual and I think it's effective to show you some slides, some imagery of her. And I think that's a good way to get going. So let me see if I can share. Yeah, here.
And while you're doing that, just a quick nanosecond for me here.
Yeah.
Ooh, beautiful. I yesterday our power got turned off, and I'm very so sorry for the interruption. When I read your bios, both of you are such fascinating women. So I'm going to ask Shane if you wouldn't mind just putting they're both the girls' bios in the link because they didn't hear me read them, and there's some good stuff in there. And also, I didn't hear. I was offline for at least 5-6 minutes, maybe more, and then we were able to redo the router. So I might repeat and ask some questions. But I'm thrilled that you're going to be showing this and the slideshow, and she's absolutely beautiful. And I wish we all had one of your pendants right now on our this talk conversation. So take it away, and thank you so
Well,
much for
you know,
patience.
I'd love to hear your introduction, Donna, if you want to just read it now. Would you like to do that?
Well, I think the girls just are putting the bios in there. I just don't want to take from your time.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
let's just put your bios in there because we only have another half hour, and I think this is way more important than.
Okay, so this is a 20-second clip from I believe it's 60 minutes. So let me start that.
Yeah, take your time. We can go over if we have to. I just don't want to take away from this.
Okay, let's see if this works.
Describe her to me in your mind's eye. Well, she is this beautiful woman who has some Native American features, is capped by this beautiful headdress as a reminder that this is a country that was different because it was built first and foremost around the issue of freedom.
That's great, isn't it?
Wow. How
Yeah.
big, do you put in perspective, like how many feet is she?
Well, actually, I'm going to show you some images with me against the original statue, but she's 19 and a half feet.
Wow.
The Statue of Liberty is like 140 feet. So, you know, in a way, she's not that tall, and she's bronze, so she's kind of set against the sky and doesn't show up that much. But yeah, I've always wondered, why don't people see her? Why didn't I see her?
Yeah. And I love that's the moon behind her in that one picture to the right. So she's not lit up at all then.
Right. That's the moonscape. And yeah, I mean, she is pretty dark, dark bronze, so it's hard
But
to see.
one thing I found it was so interesting, and you said it was a 60-minute clip, but he said representing freedom, but he didn't say representing the role and the responsibility and the courage that the women had to help build this country.
The full clip is on Katya's website.
Okay.
Full 60-minute report is there. So if you
good.
go onto her site, you'll be able to watch it and see exactly what he says. I appreciate what you're saying, though.
Yeah, let's make sure that link makes it in there.
But you know, this is why women have to become historians and tell our own stories, because we don't tend to get credit for certain things. So I never thought I would become a historian, but now I see the importance of it. And when I wrote some articles about her, I didn't think they would accept them because it was from my point of view, but they did. You know, I was able to write a clean history from my perspective. So anyway, so here's we call it the unseen, untold history until now. So that's why I'm out there, you know, presenting so that the statue will be seen. Now, when I was living in New Mexico, I was living there for 20 years. That's where I met Norma and many other people that we gather with. I met Joy Harjo, who ended up becoming the first Native American poet laureate. And I'd like to read you something she said that I think relates to this image we're looking. She says, "Symbols are alive. They are living things. Grace is a woman with time on her hands." I love that. And then I wrote this called I call it I am an American woman standing on top of the world. Art, poetry, music, and myths are created in my name of freedom. My silhouette of an eagle head, feathers, and talons are my prominent feature when visitors look 287 feet up at me from the Capitol grounds. My stars reflect the heavens, and my eagle headdress connects me to my land, my people, and the national bird of the United States. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And here we come up with a story, the story of her connected to Hawaii, which is a really important story. This is Morna Simeone. Unfortunately, I never met her in person, but I heard her story I think Hawaii became a state in what, 1958? I'm not sure. And Morna started going to the Capitol to find out what was going on in the country. And she would sit on the east lawn of the Capitol. And of course, she was very intuitive and a very spiritual woman. And she would have conversations with the statue, very intuitive, psychic conversations with the statue about who she was. And Morna realized how important the statue was. And I'm not going to go into what the conversation was she had with the statue, but her conclusion was that the Lady of Freedom is the memory bank and the consciousness of the nation. Well, as a metalsmith working with symbols, I understood that, like everything, our furniture, everything, our jewelry has a memory, who made it, who it's from. And she realized that this statue is holding the memory of everything that's gone on underneath the dome throughout history from the time she was put up in the middle of the Civil War. But actually, I've researched, and the symbol goes back further than that. But so it's holding the memory of this country. And you'll hear a little more about that later. So she took it upon herself to do two things. So in 1989, she appealed to the Hawaiian state legislature to acknowledge the statue as a symbol of world peace and freedom. And that passed there. And I think there was an intention to create that as a national movement, but we haven't gotten that far yet. Then the other thing she did, let me go to the next slide, is the original plaster statue that Thomas Crawford made was in pieces at the basement of the Smithsonian. And she thought that it would be a good idea to have it pieced together so it could show, because it would show up better on the ground level than what the statue was so high up on top of the dome. So she appealed to her Senator Daniel Akaka and Daniel Inouye to help her so that her foundation, the Foundation of I, could raise funds to have that done. And she did that so that I think by about 1993, it was put together. And on the left, you see it in the Russell Rotunda. And I was there in about 1995, and I met with Haleakala, who teaches her Ho'oponopono process. And then on the other side of me is a Hawaiian businessman who probably helped raise the funds to have the statue put together. And then years later, the Capitol, they decided to build a Capitol Visitor Center, one floor under the Capitol, as an entryway for visitors to go on tours. So right now she became the centerpiece of the Capitol Visitor Center. And there I am in front of her. So you can kind of see how tall she is by the height of us humans.
So it
So,
sounds,
do you have a question?
no, I was just saying, it sounds like she's getting the recognition she finally deserves. And I didn't realize, I'm so thrilled you brought in that Hawaiian piece. I'm definitely going to do some background research on that, because these Hawaiian women who came from a matriarchal society saw their role
Yeah.
in politics and in community. And it's no surprise that it was a Hawaiian elder who actually was behind this. This is great. Thank you. Keep
It's
going.
yeah, it's very amazing. And really, because she did that, it kept me going for 30 years without, I did this on my own. There was no funding, because I knew it was important because of what Morna did.
Mhm.
So I went to the Capitol every few years and met with the curator of art and the historian at the Capitol Historical Society, who printed, had these magazines called the Capitol Dome printed, and he asked me to write a story about the statue. Well, I thought, this is ridiculous. I've never written anything in my life, and I'm not a historian, but I'm a visual artist. So I kept seeing images that related to the story, and I'd piece them together, and I'd go and show them to the curator and the historian, and they just kept encouraging me. And then my first article, called An Appreciation of Thomas Crawford's Statue of Freedom, it took me 2 years to write, because I didn't know how to write, and I used a lot of editors. But then I had so much information, I thought, well, let me write another article and maybe a book. So this second article was called Behold the Statue of Freedom, and it's about Thomas Crawford, the sculptor, and the senator that he had a friendship with over the years. And the next slide is about Thomas Crawford. And I'm going to read you what he said here. A statue on the Capitol Dome represents the soul of the new nation. What greater honor could a sculptor ask? The people love these symbols and will fight for them and die for them. And he also said, a country puts its dreams, its ideals into symbols, a flag, a piece of ground, a monument. So that's Thomas Crawford, and I believe he's the only artist that has a marble bust at the Capitol. This is at the Capitol. So the statue went through 3 designs. The first one on the left was called Freedom, Triumphant, and War and Peace, and she's holding an Athenian branch of peace in one hand and a sword and shield in the other. So she's very classical. And Jefferson Davis was one of the commissioners, and he wanted a stronger, more warrior image. So the second design Crawford did was called Armed Liberty, and she's holding a sword and shield in both hands, and she's wearing a phrygian cap, the symbol of a freed slave, and he didn't like that. And they suggested that they honor the indigenous people of our country with a headpiece, and so that's how she got the next design with the eagle feathered headpiece. But it was influenced by this backstory of this is a fresco at the Capitol, and it's called America, and it's this indigenous woman with her arrows, bow and arrows, and she's wearing 3 feathers for her new nation, red, white, and blue, and the stars on her headband relate to the French liberty images. And this is in the Lyndon Johnson room, where they make the decisions where our money goes to in the country. So I like to connect with her a lot, because the room where she is very influential for our country. So, okay, the next slide. I transcribed some of Morna's writings, and I've asked Kris, she has such a wonderful voice, to read some of what Morna Simeone wrote. So Kris, would you like to share that? You're muted, sweetie. Kris, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. I could get to my screen, but I think I've got it here. This, as Katya said, these are the words from Morna, and she is the woman who perpetuated the Ho'oponopono throughout the world. And she begins with these words: how long does it truly take for the Lady Freedom to be truly set free? The answer is in the hands of man, or humanity. As man moves his own personal, individual crud or baggage, so will it be moved in all areas. And this is the work of the Ho'oponopono. This is the cleansing. This is the healing that is necessary. Man feels he is superior, so he cleanses thoughts, affirmations without the totality of himself. He ignores the seed he has sown, which manifests today in his life. Do not sweep it under the carpet and ignore it. No. What's under the carpet? For it will show when the carpet is removed. Bless you and all who use the process daily as a refresher. As you inhale your breath, it cleanses your inner self, so you will sparkle like fine crystal. Go now and be at peace. For the buffalo on the prairie, the tumbleweed, the cactus, and all mountains, valleys, and streams will echo your gratitude to the world, for all will be set free. And so it is.
Beautiful. If all that were just true, it'd be beautiful.
It can be still.
It can be.
So thank you for letting me share all of this with you. And we'd love to be in touch with anyone interested in the story. And I have a lot of images and videos on my website. And Kris does some great memes and blogs on our Facebook page, Lady Freedom.
Wow, great. We will make sure all those links are in there. And I just, this just draws so many questions for me and anybody who is on live, whether you're on Facebook or LinkedIn or here on the Zoom. Again, I apologize for the bad connection there for a while, but I'm so grateful that we got the opportunity to see this. Is so fascinating. And it is so much gratitude to both of you and all the women who are working really tirelessly to bring this forward. Oh, I love that last image you had on there.
You want me to put it back?
Well, I was just going to ask, there's a sculpture, the lady's on the top, Lady Freedom's on the top. And then I noticed in the front, I never noticed this either, who's the male deity in the beginning, or there's a male figure in the front, kind of dominating the front of the Capitol. Do you know who that is?
You know, I'm not sure actually. And I can't go back to that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting. I don't know, Shane or TJ, if you can Google the male sculpture in front of the building.
It's probably Washington, an equestrian of Washington, George Washington.
Yeah, well, you wrote a beautiful article that prompted my blog this week. I'm going to make sure that that goes in there. I mentioned several women, but I think it was Polly. There was one woman who was responsible. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Responsible for George Washington's life and his whole troop that would have died if it wasn't for her.
Yeah,
Can you,
Polly, the Seneca woman.
yeah, like what's the backstory of that and the heroic thing that she did that we even had a first president of the United States? What was how did she do that? Do you know?
Well, there were a few Seneca that actually walked through the snow to help. They knew how to eat off the land, and so they shared food and taught the soldiers how to cook. Actually, I have a beautiful slide of her, George Washington, and one of the chiefs. It's at the National Museum of the American Indian. They've honored her there.
Polly Cooper.
Yeah,
Holly Cooper, yeah.
yeah. And you guys, when you can link to that from my blog, we'll put the blog in the link there, which was basically foundation of one of Katya's articles that she wrote that I was so intrigued by. I just kind of did a little summary and a little research myself of all these other incredible Indigenous women who really are hugely responsible for the good part of our nation's beginnings. And
Well, you know, I'll tell you a story about that.
yeah.
Because for a couple of years, we were meeting with a Mohawk clan mother and not Joanne, Shenandoah, one of the Seneca, no,
Michelle.
Oneida. She was an Oneida, same as Polly Cooper.
Michelle.
We were meeting with her and talking about this story, and she said, well, you know, Martha Washington knitted Polly Cooper a shawl and a hat. And it's in the museum, one of the museums that they have. It's one of their prized possessions. And I have a picture of that somewhere. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this stuff should all be taught in grade school to our children, you know.
Yeah.
Be, you know, fascinating when we're learning about all the presidents, and they're all the presidents, and every one of them is a male. But someone who was asking, it's a kind of a good question, Kat Haber, thanks for, you know, how much does a statue like this weigh? And I wonder the value, you know, like in like bronze, and, you know, because everything is so monetized in the Capitol building, right? Like the gold embossed picture frames with presidents in them, you know, and like, what is this bronze statue? What is...
Well, you know, Crawford got $3,000 for it, but that was, you know, that was 1850s. So it's hard to tell those things looking back, really.
But she probably weighs a couple of tons, huh?
You know what? I write about things like that, but I'm not number oriented. But yeah, she's pretty heavy.
Yeah. So all you women out there who are worried about your weight, you know, don't judge it, you know, just bring that sculpturous body of yours and be proud to share and adorn the world with all the goodness and beauty that you have. And if you're around people like Kris and Katya, you know, really forefronting the way to bring the symbolism of it's more than just a symbol, though, you know, this statue, like you say, it's a living sculpture that spoke to you. The sign that Kris, you had in the Everglades when you got the word. These symbols are alive within all of us if we allow them in and have the purpose to carry out the good word, right?
Well, I would encourage people in their meditations to try to connect with her. And, you know, before you go to bed at night, you know, put her in your thoughts and maybe you'll have a dream about her. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to know more about who her is. Like, if we have just a few minutes left, and before we do this, something I'd like you to think about, just for a minute while I do these couple of quick announcements. But the way I'd like to close this out is for you to paint a more clear picture than just a statue of like who her is and who should we be meditating on. So just give me 1 minute before when I come back, and I would like you to just articulate a little bit more on the deity or the goddess or what she symbolizes. But
Yeah.
I'm just super thankful that you guys showed up today. And I wanted to just let you guys all know, aside from the technical issues here on my end, maybe the kahunas just told me to be quiet and let you guys take the stage. And Kayla, thanks for filling in and sharing. But February 29th, our next guest is amazing. Another incredible woman, Angela Winters. And she is a holistic health consultant who works at a cardiology clinic where she works for a doctor, and I'm not going to speak his name right now, but I'll share more about him next week, who just totally broke out of mainstream medicine. He was a very renowned cardiologist and started a holistic cardiology center, and works with people how to get off statins and how to improve their whole heart health I'm just saying, don't miss this. If you have any heart issues, or you know anybody who has heart issues or dealing with stress or trauma, this is going to be an incredible episode. And we all know that women are not immune from heart disease, and how many good women died young, especially back then when we're talking about Lady Freedom. So I invite you all to next week's episode, To a Dose of Positivity, and also to follow up on Kris and Katya's history. And if you want to get involved, there's plenty of ways, like they mentioned, for you to get involved with this and learn as much as you can and teach your children and teach them well, whether they're little boys or little girls, to know that the statue does live on top of the Capitol building. And there are many other goddesses and women symbols and deities and living beings today that are contributing so much to the world. And I try and bring many of them here to A Dose of Positivity. One of them that's in the house right now is Kat Haber, and she is going to be a guest on March 7th, and you don't want to miss that. And Kat, put your links in the chat, and then we'll be tuning in to the beautiful work that she's doing, helping so many people. And one of the outstanding things about her is she did the walk for climate change. I forget, I think it was 2014, Kat, remind me, 2014, I think. You're having your 10-year anniversary, where she walked from the Capitol to across the country to enlighten people about climate change. So she's got lots of good things in the works, and united, all of us women will keep Lady Freedom going. Thank you all for sharing that. And now just Kris and Katya, either one or both of you, please give us a better image of Lady Freedom so that we can have a clearer meditation.
I neglected to read something that I think would answer that, but please, I mostly write history. So please read my 2 articles on the website, but I'm going to read this is me just flowing about who she is. She says, I am freedom, visible, but unseen in the 21st century. Even though I come from another time and place, I am still relevant and full of hope for my country. I have pondered this century, but I don't have the keys to it. I do believe that we will return to our roots of freedom. My children await peace and justice, beauty and compassion. Listen carefully.
Why doesn't she have the keys?
It's for all of us to uplift, to tune in and uplift.
We are the keys.
Relationship.
We are the keys. We must see ourselves before we can see her often.
Yeah. Very beautiful. So,
You know, if if you asked me about my peace activism,
Yes.
and I'll just real quick, because I'm very attached to the Middle East and what goes on there. I lived in Israel for a while, but I love buying Palestinian crafts. I'm wearing this beautiful shawl, handmade shawl from Palestine. And so I like to support both efforts, and being a crafts person, I love to buy those kind of crafts. But I designed a peace hand here. That
A mumfa.
I actually made it as a piece of jewelry. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But then when I lived in Santa Fe, we had peace marches. And so I designed these so if any of you are interested, I can send you the image to download. Really. This is peace in Hebrew, English, and Arabic.
That is so beautiful. I want you to put that in our Facebook group, and I definitely want to share that with the world. That is so beautiful. I'll put it everywhere.
I didn't do this, but isn't this amazing?
Oh gosh, that is so great.
Yeah.
And your jewelry piece is just stunning. The whole thing, that is just stunning. I'm so grateful you're in my life and that you're doing this beautiful work, and it's just it's incredibly appreciated. Yes.
Go to her website. She has these pieces available to
Yes.
purchase even. Yes.
Absolutely. I'm going to get one for my son for sure. He's doing a lot of work with that in Nashville. I love it. And Kat, I don't know if you guys saw this, but she put in the cost of the piece made in the woman, the statue. He only got $120,000 in today's money. That's what $3,000 would be. It looks like it's worth more than $120,000. So she's priceless regardless of what it is. But thank you, Kat, for doing all the work.
It cost a lot more to cast her than he got to carve her.
Yeah. Yeah. And Kat put in a great link there, We Rotary Club of International Peace. So everybody, I want to give you enough time to download all these great links.
Yeah.
And I want to just, again, thank you, Kris and Katya. When your book comes out, we'll definitely love to have you back on the show, and be really our honor and privilege to share your work and the unfolding that comes between now and then. I'm sure as you dig deeper into all of this beautiful history. Yes. And again, thank you, everybody. If nobody else has anything they want to say, I am off to my weekly massage from a goddess who is a healer, who takes care of me and makes it possible for me to show up each day, each time, for a dose of positivity. So until next week, I want to say thank you, everybody, and everybody for listening to the replay. Big, big love and aloha.
Aloha.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.